Hello. Happy Friday. How's everyone doing? Sit back so my head's not getting chopped off at the top there. Made it through the week. Hope everyone has had a good week thus far. Ready to head into the weekend? Adjust my tie. Farmhouse. Farmhouse had a network error. Oh no. But it got sorted out. I'm gonna move this chair that's covered in junk as a bunch of it falls on the ground. Oh boy. That's what I forgot to do. Let's get that out of here. Alright, nobody saw that. Give people some time to, Hey, there's the Sharkies. Alright. Welcome back, Sharkies. We missed you on Monday. How did the D&D session go? Was it everything you hoped for? Also, since Farmhouse doesn't generally have the actual volume on, how's the sound coming through? Is everything sound alright tonight? What other questions can I ask you about? Just bombard you with questions. Missed you so much, that's why. I have not seen Erica yet. I don't know whether or not she's going to make it because her work schedule just changed. So I remember thinking that one of that wasn't going to conflict with one of our reading days. Maybe it was Fridays. The time of the orc. Don't ask why I did that. I just felt the need. D&D was okay. Missed a player. Oh. Sounds coming through good. Great. A major plot point. Oh, that's disappointing. I'm sorry about that. Major plot point. Farmhouse is damaged again today, so her typing may be a little slower today. Her physio thinks she may have pulled her pinky moving muscle in her arm. If anyone wonders why I read your names out when I read the comments, it's because I don't have it set up in such a way that I'm overlapping the chat onto the actual video stream, and so if I upload this stuff on video on YouTube and you guys watch it there, it might be a little confusing if I don't say who's saying what or why I'm just spouting off these random lines. Sharkies say, excuse the keyboard. Think it may be losing power. Oh no! Well, that's no good. Let me throw in some extra letters here and there. Alright. That's a real nice excuse you got there. I see how this is. So, you guys missed out on an exciting chapter on Monday. It sounded like maybe you went and watched the video on YouTube, though. I just caught that John was appreciating the G.I. Joe reference. Who wants a body massage? Oh, those shorts. Those are so funny. Speaking of funny, I saw this. Oh, hey, Erica made it! Hooray! We were just saying I wasn't sure whether or not your new work schedule was gonna interrupt your attendance or not. Was that on Mondays that you can't make it now? I remember thinking that one of the days the hours were kind of awkward. I'm glad you made it. We'll be working on Monday evenings starting September 19th. Okay, today's the 10th. So the 19th gives us next Monday and Friday. So we've got today and two more. Where's that going to drop us? Chapter 13. Oh, 13's pretty short, isn't it? Yeah, we might actually do two chapters tonight, because 13 only goes from page 282 to 296. So that's pretty short. I don't know. We'll see. We might be able to finish the book off in the next... We'd have to really go a little long on a couple of them in order to do that, but we could finish it in 3 streams. Still be joining on Friday. Library closes early Fridays. All right, well, here's what you do then in order to make it for every stream is you have to introduce a 7 o'clock reading hour with Sleet at the library where you broadcast the stream of me reading a book. I think that would make a really good library program and a very good excuse for you to still be in the chat with us. And then everyone can watch and you can comment on behalf of the viewers. The union will not like this. What? No, it's a program. You introduce it as a program of because I'm reading books and you guys could bring in the book that I'm reading and people could read with. Sharky say Mrs. Sharky would if she could. What's this? It really would be so fun. I think it's very on point as a library program. Yeah. I can't see any issues. Well, I'll just be careful to watch our language. Make sure the moderators are on point. And then, yeah, and then you just bring in copies of the book that people can borrow from the library. No, you're swearing. Yeah, you're the problem. Oh boy. You missed out on my... Oh no, the Sharkies. The Sharkies were not here on Monday. So, Sharkies, did you guys end up watching it on YouTube? I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Smaug voice. It took a little bit, I think, for me to get into it. Farmouse was appreciative of the bit about revenge, though. So rude. Such a rude person. Revenge! After that stream on Monday, my throat was sore for like a full day. It took a little bit to recover. So we'll see. By the end of that chapter, when like I had taken a break from Smaug's voice because he didn't talk for a little bit, and then he did talk a little bit more at the very end, and getting back into the voice was a little painful. So we'll see how many lines he has in this next chapter. I think he probably doesn't have too much more talking left, but I could be wrong. Of the last 8 to 10 minutes, had to get to a preschool Zoom meeting. A preschool Zoom meeting. School is not what it was back when I was in preschool. When I was in preschool, it was this big brick building in Abbotsford that I went to. It was like a fancy school too. I think it maybe had some like French immersion aspect to it, although I don't think I benefited much from that if that's the case. I do remember very clearly that around the corner from the preschool, not like we could go from the school like during the school hours, but there was this candy shop that had all kinds of candies, including these like rock candies on sticks, on these like wooden dowel type sticks. and they had I really liked the cola balls, the like silver. They look like ball bearings, silver cola balls, and so it was exciting when I got to go there. And while I was in preschool, not at the school, I was outside of school hours, but while I was in that year, I broke my arm, and that is, as far as I'm aware, the only time I have broken a bone. And everybody shared or signed the cast. Yay, edible ball bearings! Yeah. uh, so let's see. In the last chapter, we had all kinds of encounters with Smaug. Um, Bilbo had a conversation with the dragon, where he kind of got a little into himself and like got all into his riddle game again, giving himself all sorts of titles and things. Bilbo getting a little egotistical, I think, just a bit. We had our Smaug. I keep pointing the wrong way. It's so I'm not used to being on camera, so I always forget which side of me things are on. Our dragons over here. We got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then over here in the cabinet, we've got 5. And the sixth one is actually our dog's toy dragon. And so it's off on the ground somewhere for him to play with. Yeah, it's on the ground behind me. The gray one that was next to the red one is on the floor. Yeah, that's the one. I need some artwork of Smaug on the wall now. Somebody's got to send me a dragon, because how can you do artwork out of the Hobbit and not do Smaug? So I gotta get something to go. Wrong side again. Up here, flying above everything else. Dragons are tricky to draw. Yeah, I've got. How do you picture Smaug? You know, I was wondering. Before the stream, I actually took a quick glance because I did not remember whether or not Tolkien had mentioned a color for Smaug. And as far as I'm aware, there is one mention of him being a great red gold dragon. There he lay, a vast red golden dragon, fast asleep. A thrumming came from his jaws and nostrils, and wisps of smoke, but his fires were low in slumber. All his limbs and his huge coiled tail. It describes the treasure some more. Lay with wings folded like an immeasurable bat, turned partly on one side. His belly crusted with gems and fragments of gold from his long lying on his costly bed. So that's interesting. That line kind of makes it sound like he didn't necessarily intentionally fix the treasure to his belly, but it just came about as a result of having laid on the treasure for so long. That was something that I was kind of speculating about before, whether it was on purpose or not, and maybe that's why dragons sleep on treasure, is so that it will protect their bellies. Red gold, is that red and gold, or like brassy gold or rose gold? Yeah, well, if we end up reading the Belgariad at some point, maybe it'll be somewhat like Murgle. Is it Murgle? Getting that word right? I think it's Murgo. Murgo gold? I forget. It's I think it's Murgos. I think they're yeah, Murgo. There's in the series of the Belgariad, there's a bunch of different peoples that are sort of guided by a variety of gods. And the gods sometimes come and like walk and talk among the people. Like the gods are tangible beings that you could potentially have a conversation with. And one group of people are called the Murgos, and they're kind of, generally speaking, they're the antagonists of the series, and they've got vast mines that they mine this red gold from. That's like gold that is kind of described frequently as being like almost like kind of bloody gold. Ah, Farmhouse can see the book, King of the Murgos, from here. All right, well that settles that. Yeah, they're kind of a nasty people. I really love that series. So, but I think it might be more likely that we end up, based on what you guys were saying before, we might be more likely to read Ursula Le Guin's Wizard of Earthsea, which is another book that I love. So I'm not disappointed about that. But I do feel like more people have experience with A Wizard of Earthsea. I think that that's a book that more people have probably read than the Belgariad. Um, so that's something that people might want to think about, whether you want to go with a book that you're more familiar with if you have read A Wizard of Earthsea, or one that you don't know. Which I I mean, unless anyone here has read the Belgariad before, I know Farmos has. Um, yeah. Erica would like a book that will make sense if you only read half the chapters. Well, we'll see. I mean, when we're finished with this book, um, I think what we'll probably do is have a stream that where we're not actually reading a book, where we maybe just talk about the Hobbit, talk about you know some of the stuff that happened in there, and then I'll try and have some of the candidates for the next book with me, and we'll talk about each of those books a little bit and see what people want to read next. Um, and at that time, maybe we can discuss the stream schedule, see if people want to stick. Because I mean, realistically, everyone that's here is more or less everyone that has stuck around, right? That is most likely to continue. I think whether or not we get more viewers in the future or not, who knows? But so because of that, if it would work better for people to change up the schedule, we can talk about doing that. Tuesdays and Thursdays in particular don't work great for me for the stream unless we did it earlier in the day or something, maybe, because I go to Kung Fu Thursday or Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 7 o'clock. Try and stay in some semblance of shape and get some exercise, and also because I just love doing martial arts. Um, so Tuesdays and Thursdays aren't the best for me, but besides that, I don't mind changing things up a little bit if that would mean that it's more convenient for you guys. Um, all right, so that's been a lot of talking tonight. We're past 7:15. Let's do a quick review of the previous chapter, but I mean, I think everyone knows the previous chapter pretty well. Um, Bilbo more or less volunteered to go down the tunnel behind the door that they had uncovered and sneak in and with his magic ring and have a look see at what was within. Um, so he went in and saw the dragon on its vast treasure, and I think this was, Bilbo really didn't have any kind of idea of the treasure prior to that moment. He'd heard the dwarves talk about it, I'm sure, endlessly heard the dwarves talk about it, but hearing about a treasure and seeing it, I suppose, are two different things, especially for this little hobbit from, the Shire far away at this point. He's got his nice little home, but he's heard about treasures and stories. But to him, prior to this, treasures were books and maps and things like that. I don't think he'd seen really much gold in his life. I'm sure he maybe has a little bit. I know he's got some nice silverware that gets mentioned at some point or another. Um, but I think the dragon hoard that it had stolen from the dwarves, he really didn't know what he was in for until he actually saw it. And so he snuck down and very daringly stole a cup from right under the dragon's paw, just about. Claws? From under the dragon's claws. I don't know if a dragon has paws, or does a dragon have hands? A dragon definitely has claws. Uh, and hauled this huge cup back up to the dwarves, who. That was weird. I had a weird moment of dark on the stream there for a moment. Hopefully it didn't change anything for you guys or cause any problems. Anyways, yeah, hauled it back up for to the dwarves, who were initially all praise and, oh, you're such a hero, we're at your service forever and ever and ever, and our grandkids will still be at your service. And then the dragon woke up and immediately noticed that the cup was gone, because dragon, and kind of went on a rampage, and they all were terrified, and now, oh, it was all Bilbo's fault, and they all took shelter inside the tunnel right before the dragon started sweeping around outside, chased off their poor ponies and ate some of them, sadly. And then Bilbo went back in to have a look after the dragon had gone back to sleep, found that the dragon was not fully asleep and was just being tricky, and could smell him. Smaug licked some rocks. Licked some rocks? Am I missing something? The Sharkies are confusing me. Anyways, Bilbo and Smaug had a little conversation. A big conversation, really. Which, oh, fire licked the mountainside. I see. Farmo says like a good geologist. Yes, that's right. They had a big conversation, which kind of killed my voice. Bilbo declared himself Barrel Rider, which I think is just the funniest title. I am Barrel Rider. Good job, Bilbo. And then, anyways, long story short, sort of, Bilbo snuck back out. Smaug, real angry, tried to ambush them, kind of smashed the outside of the tunnel in the process. And so now they're kind of trapped inside the tunnel with only one direction they can really go. And that's more or less where we're at. Sharkies thinks the phrasing was more like Smaug licked the mountainside with fire. Oh, I gotcha. Farmo says Barrel Rider makes her think like a really cheap bull riding thing in a dive bar. Before we get going, last night, somebody that I know on Facebook shared this meme that I've just been laughing about for like the past day that says, Hobbits be like, here are my daughters, Celestia, Marigold, and Daffodil. And here are my sons, Bongwater, Dumbo, and Chungus. It seems pretty accurate to me. Eriker and Farmos had both seen that before, but I thought I would share that with anyone that had missed it. It's the Chungus that always gets Farmos. Yeah. So I was saying, we'll see how Chungus and company continue to deal with the dragon in Chapter 13, Not at Home. Center that a little more, so you can just see my hair above it. Duck down. Focus. Come on, camera, you can do it. It does not like when I do this. Oh well. I'm sure you can probably at least partly make out what's going on in the art here. Let's see if I can just bring the artwork right up. Maybe that'll do it. If anything, that made it worse. Hide my fingers, maybe. Whatever. Well, we got like a helmet up here, and there's a fancy sword that you can't really see very well, and like a fancy belt thing, and it's all on treasure with cups and coins and all sorts of plates and things in there. Have a drink of water and then we'll get going. My fire drink, that's what I've got today. Dragon fire, which is totally not just water with lemon juice and cherry syrup. All right. Chapter 13, Not at Home. Actually, let's go back to the previous page. which was Smaug snorting at Barrel Rider, saying that his feet came from the waterside, and up the water you came without a doubt. I don't know your smell, but if you were not one of those men of the lake, you had their help. I'm not doing the voice right now because this is a summary, so it doesn't matter. Or a recap. They shall see me and remember who is the real king under the mountain. He rose in fire and went away south towards the running river. So that's where we're at. I wanted to go back to that because it starts with, in the meanwhile, so make sure that everyone knows what that means. In the meanwhile, the dwarves sat in darkness, and utter silence fell about them. Little they ate, and little they spoke. They could not count the passing of time, and they scarcely dared to move, for the whisper of their voices echoed and rustled in the tunnel. If they dozed, they woke still to darkness and to silence going on unbroken. At last, after days and days of waiting, as it seemed, when they were becoming choked and dazed for want of air, they could bear it no longer. They would almost have welcomed sounds from below of the dragon's return. In the silence they feared some cunning devilry of his, but they could not sit there forever. Thorin spoke. "Let us try the door," he said. "I must feel the wind on my face soon, or die. I think I would rather be smashed by Smaug in the open than suffocate in here." So, several of the dwarves got up and groped back to where the door had been. But they found that the upper end of the tunnel had been shattered and blocked with broken rock. Neither key nor the magic it had once obeyed would ever open that door again. "We are trapped," they groaned. "This is the end. We shall die here." Eriker says, "What a drama llama." He would not have done well during COVID. No, they're in a pretty dire strait here. But somehow, just when the dwarves were most despairing, Bilbo felt a strange lightening of the heart, as if a heavy weight had gone from under his waistcoat. "Come, come," he said. "While there's life, there's hope. As my father used to say, and third time pays for all, I am going down the tunnel once again. I have been that way twice, when I knew there was a dragon at the other end, so I will risk a third visit when I am no longer sure. Anyway, the only way out is down, and I think this time you had better all come with me." I paused because some of the punctuation was a little strange in here, but that was just me being confused. In desperation, they agreed, and Thorin was the first to go forward by Bilbo's side. Well, that's for once. "Now do be careful," whispered the hobbit, "and as quiet as you can be. There may be no Smaug at the bottom, but then again, there may be. Don't let us take any unnecessary risks." Loud dwarf shaming. This book has pointed out a few times how much quieter Bilbo is than the dwarves. The dwarves are not sneaky sorts. They tend to clatter and clang and grumble and groan while they're even when they're trying to be sneaky. Tremop. Nice try, Farmhouse. Trump. Down, down they went. The dwarves could not, of course, compare with the hobbit in real stealth. What did I say? And they made a deal of puffing and shuffling with echoes magnified alarmingly. But though every now and again Bilbo, in fear, stopped and listened, not a sound stirred below. Near the bottom, as well as he could judge, Bilbo slipped on his ring and went ahead. But he did not need it. The darkness was complete, and they were all invisible, ring or no ring. In fact, so black was it that the hobbit came to the opening unexpectedly, put his hand on air, stumbled forward, and rolled headlong into the hall. Oh dear. There he lay, face downwards, on the floor, and did not dare get up, or hardly even to breathe. But nothing moved. There was not a gleam of light, unless, as it seemed to him, when at last he slowly raised his head, there was a pale white glint above him and far off in the gloom. But certainly it was not a spark of dragon fire, though the worm stench was heavy in the place, and the taste of vapor was on his tongue. The Sharkies say, so Smaug was the only light source in the cavern. Yeah, I guess just the wisps of flame coming from his maw. Farmos says, thankfully it was dark enough for them to not see his temple. He was wearing his ring. They couldn't have seen it even if it was fully bright in there. Smaug also does not bathe. Yeah. Bilbo's not the only stinky one. Smaug was also very... Jeez, come on, people. Many smells. All right. At length, Mr. Baggins could bear it no longer. "Confound you, Smaug, you worm!" he squeaked aloud. "Stop playing hide and seek. Give me a light, and then eat me if you can catch me." Risky. Faint echoes ran round the unseen hall, but there was no answer. Bilbo got up and found that he did not know in what direction to turn. "Now I wonder what on earth Smaug is playing at," he said. What on earth? I guess it is Middle Earth. Still seems like kind of a funny phrase for Bilbo to be using. "He is not at home today, or tonight, or whatever it is, I do believe. If Oin and Gloin have not lost their tinder boxes, perhaps we can make a little light and have a look round before the luck turns." "Light!" he cried. "Can anybody make a light? Aziz, light!" Sharky say like a kid calling to the unseen monster in the closet. Nice analogy, says Farmhouse. Erica says they need the editors from My Little Pony in there to correct those semantic slip-ups. Farmhouse says, that's a great movie, I think referring to my Aziz light. Everybody, Pony, come over here? I see. Farmhouse points out I was talking about the Fifth Element. Yeah, I was referencing. Is that what you meant by the editors, that they always get the wording correct for when they're talking to each other? They correct every phrase to be pony related. I see. The dwarves, of course, were very alarmed when Bilbo fell forward down the step with a bump into the hall. I guess because they could hear that? I don't know. And they sat huddled just where he had left them at the end of the tunnel. "Shh, shh," they hissed when they heard his voice. And though that helped the hobbit to find out where they were, it was some time before he could get anything else out of them. But in the end, when Bilbo actually began to stamp on the floor and screamed out, "Light!" at the top of his shrill voice, "Aziz, light!" Thorin gave way, and Oin and Gloin were sent back to their bundles at the top of the tunnel. So instead of "what on earth," they'll exclaim, "what in Equestria?" Aha. All right, yeah, well, there you go. But in here, like, I suppose the phrase does still work, right? It's Middle Earth. I don't know that I really do. Does anyone in the books refer to Middle Earth? Does anyone, like anyone speaking aloud, use the words Middle Earth? I don't think they have in this book. So many little details that I just, if it happened, I wasn't paying attention at that moment. After a while, a twinkling gleam showed them returning. Oin with a small pine torch alight in his hand, and Gloin with a bundle of others under his arm. Quickly Bilbo trotted to the door and took the torch, but he could not persuade the dwarves to light the others, or to come and join him yet. As Thorn carefully explained, Mr. Baggins was still officially their expert burglar and investigator. If he liked to risk a light, that was his affair. Oh boy. They would wait in the tunnel for his report. So they sat near the door and watched. Cowardly dwarves. Sure, good excuse. Yeah, right, Sharkies? Farmo says, dragon scary. I feel like the dwarves have the right idea. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I suppose you can't blame them for being cautious, because maybe Smaug is waiting for everyone to pop out of the tunnel before he comes down and torches the lot of them, right? They saw the little dark shape of the hobbit start across the floor, holding his tiny light aloft. Every now and again, while he was still near enough, they caught a glint and a tinkle as he stumbled on some golden thing. The light grew smaller as he wandered away into the vast hall. Then it began to rise, dancing into the air. Bilbo was climbing the great mound of treasure. Soon he stood upon the top, and still went on. Then they saw him halt and stoop for a moment, but they did not know the reason. It was the Arkenstone, the heart of the mountain. So Bilbo guessed from Thorin's description. But indeed, there could not be two such gems, even in such a marvelous hoard, even in all the world. Ever as he climbed, the same white gleam had shone before him and drawn his feet towards it. Slowly it grew to a little globe of pallid light. Now, as he came near, it was tinged with a flickering sparkle of many colors at the surface, reflected and splintered from the wavering light of his torch. At last he looked down upon it, and he caught his breath. The great jewel shone before his feet of its own inner light, and yet, cut and fashioned by the dwarves, who had dug it from the heart of the mountain long ago, it took all light that fell upon it, and changed it into 10,000 sparks of white radiance, shot with glints of the rainbow. Suddenly Bilbo's arm went towards it, drawn by its enchantment. His small hand would not close about it, for it was a large and heavy gem, but he lifted it, shut his eyes, and put it in his deepest pocket. Now I am a burglar indeed, thought he, but I suppose I must tell the dwarves about it. Sometime. They did say I could pick and choose my own share, and I think I would choose this if they took all the rest. All the same, he had an uncomfortable feeling that the picking and choosing had not really been meant to include this marvelous gem, and that trouble would yet come of it. Farmo says she likes this from the dwarves' perspective bit. The Sharkies, though it caught a tinkle, has different connotations for them. Farmo says, right, it's whole draw. The pull of the Arkenstone, I suppose. Oh, Bilbo. I do appreciate that here that even though he is caught by its enchantment, he recognizes that he's still got to show it to the dwarves. He's still got to tell them. But there is that, he'll tell them, but maybe not right away. And that's always, in these books, that's always kind of a troublesome type of thing to say. I feel like anytime someone says, I'll do the right thing, eventually, I think that always leads to, eventually getting further and further away until you've entirely forgotten about eventually. And I think that maybe that's one of the big lessons that The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings tries to teach us, is that, if you know what the right thing is, you should probably do it right away, because if you put that off, maybe you won't ever get to it. Sharkies say, it's interesting how the Arkenstone takes the One Ring's place as the object that tempts characters to a fault. Yeah, and that's a big similarity here to what I was just talking about. The ring is very similar, right? Why don't I just keep it? What's wrong with that? What if I just hang on to it? Why should I give it away? Is a very similar sort of thing that happens with the ring as with the Arkenstone. Though I think the ring's draw is more powerful. Although maybe it's a little different. Maybe it's because the ring really seems to give the most sway over anyone who touches it. People see it and they want it, but I think that the Arkenstone here, maybe just by seeing it, it makes you want it, though not as strongly as the ring. But yeah, and the ring definitely seems to corrupt more. That is absolutely true. The Arkenstone doesn't necessarily have any kind of evil power over it that I'm aware of. As far as I know, from this, it just seems like they found it inside the mountain and they cut it to be more, appealing. But there doesn't seem to be anything dark to it. I don't know any further history of the Arkenstone. Should get back to it, though. I'm getting very sidetracked today, it seems like. All right, so now he went on again. Me too. Down the other side of the great mound he climbed, and the spark of his torch vanished from the sight of the watching dwarves. But soon they saw it far away in the distance again. Bilbo was crossing the floor of the hall. He went on until he came to the great doors at the further side, and there a draught of air refreshed him, but it almost puffed out his light. He peeped timidly through, and caught a glimpse of great passages and of the dim beginnings of wide stairs going up into the gloom. And still there was no sight nor sound of Smaug. He was just going to turn and go back when a black shape swooped at him and brushed his face. He squeaked and stared, stumbled backwards and fell. His torch dropped head downwards and went out. "Only a bat, I suppose, and hope," he said miserably. "But now what am I to do?" It's supposed to say, "What am I to do," I think, but it says, "What am I do?" Haha, do. "Which is east, south, north, or west?" "Thorin, Balin, Oin, Gloin, Fili, Kili," he cried as loud as he could. It seemed a thin little noise in the wide blackness. "The light's gone out! Someone come and find me and help me!" For the moment, his courage had failed altogether. Poor Bilbo. Faintly, the dwarves heard his small cries, though the only word they could catch was, "Help!" "Now, what on earth, or under it, has happened?" There we go with earth again. "What on earth or under it has happened?" said Thorin. "Certainly not the dragon, or he would not go on squeaking." They waited a moment or two, and still there were no dragon noises. No sound at all, in fact, but Bilbo's distant voice. "Come, one of you, get another light or two," Thorin ordered. "It seems we have got to go and help our burglar." "It is about our turn to help," said Balin, "and I am quite willing to go. Anyway, I expect it is safe for the moment." Gloin lit several more torches, and then they all crept out, one by one, and went along the wall as hurriedly as they could. It was not long before they met Bilbo himself coming back towards them. His wits had quickly returned as soon as he saw the twinkle of their lights. "Only a bat and a dropped torch, nothing worse," he said in answer to their questions. Though they were much relieved, they were inclined to be grumpy and at being frightened for nothing. But what they would have said if he had told them at that moment about the Arkenstone I don't know. The mere fleeting glimpses of treasure which they had caught as they went along, and rekindled all the fire of their dwarvish hearts. And when the heart of a dwarf, even the most respectable, is wakened by gold and by jewels, he grows suddenly bold, and he may become fierce. The dwarves, indeed, no longer needed any urging. All were now eager to explore the hall while they had the chance, and willing to believe that, for the present, Smaug was away from home. Each now gripped a lighted torch, and as they gazed, first on one side and then on another, they forgot fear and even caution. They spoke aloud and cried out to one another as they lifted old treasures from the mound or from the wall and held them in the light, caressing and fingering them. Fili and Kili were almost in merry mood, and finding still hanging there many golden harps strung with silver, they took them and struck them, and being magical and also untouched by the dragon, who had small interest in music, they were still in tune. The dark hall was filled with melody that had long been silent. But most of the dwarves were more practical. They gathered gems and stuffed their pockets, and let what they could not carry fall back through their fingers with a sigh. Thorin was not least among these, but always he searched from side to side for something which he could not find. It was the Arkenstone, but he spoke of it yet to no one. Now the dwarves took down mail and weapons from the walls and armed themselves. There you go, guys. Royal indeed did Thorin look, clad in a coat of gold-plated rings, with a silver-hafted axe in a belt crusted with scarlet stones. "Mr. Baggins," he cried, "here is the first payment of your reward. Cast off your old coat and put on this." With that, he put on Bilbo a small coat of mail, wrought for some young elf prince long ago. It was of silver steel, which the elves called mithril. Mithril? I feel like I remember in the films them saying like mithril or something like that. They put kind of an E sound in it. I've always kind of read it just as mithril, but that's probably too clunky a word for elves. It's probably more like mithril. Like mithril? Mithril? Says Farmos. No rusty dungeon junk mail there. Says the Sharkies. Farmo says also they're probably not dragon-sized, I think referring to the harps. This is kind of a nice moment, though. Thorin just, calling Bilbo over and being like, here you go. Here's something just for you. Which the elves called mithril. And with it went a belt of pearls and crystals. I didn't remember that part. A light helm of figured leather strengthened beneath with hoops of steel and studded about the brim with white gems was set upon the hobbit's head. Wow. I feel magnificent, he thought. But I expect I look rather absurd. How they would laugh on the hill at home. Still, I wish there was a looking glass handy. Yeah, all right, that's fair. All the same, Mr. Baggins kept his head more clear of the bewitchment of the hoard than the dwarves did. Long before the dwarves were tired of examining the treasures, he became weary of it and sat down on the floor, and he began to wonder nervously what the end of it all would be. I would give a good many of these precious goblets, he thought, for a drink of something cheering out of one of Bjorn's wooden bowls. Thorin, he cried aloud, what next? We are armed, but what good has any armor ever been before against Smaug the Dreadful? This treasure is not yet won back. We are not looking for gold yet, but for a way of escape, and we have tempted luck too long." "You speak the truth," answered Thorin, recovering his wits. That's good. "Let us go. I will guide you. Not in 1,000 years should I forget the ways of this place." Then he hailed the others, and they gathered together, holding their torches above their heads. Holding their torches above their heads, they passed through the gaping doors, not without many a backward glance of longing. Their glittering mail they had covered again with their old cloaks, and their bright helms with their tattered hoods, and one by one they walked behind Thorin, a line of little lights in the darkness that halted often, listening in fear once more for any rumor of the dragon's coming. Farmo says, "Voice of reason there, Bilbo." Sharkies say, "Adventuring seems to have sunk into Bilbo, since he's now longing for not home, but for an earlier part of the adventure." Yeah, I thought that was an interesting point, too, that he's longing for something from Bjorn's wooden bowls, that he's looking back fondly at any point of this adventure in progress. I suppose maybe the Last Homely House would be another one. Eriker says, "He seems to have become more tookish." Though all the old adornments were long mouldered or destroyed, and though all was befouled and blasted with the comings and goings of the monster, Thorin knew every passage and every turn. They climbed long stairs, and turned and went down wide echoing ways, and turned again and climbed yet more stairs, and yet more stairs again. These were smooth, cut out of the living rock, broad and fair, and up the dwarves went, and they met no sign of any living thing, only furtive shadows that fled from the approach of their torches, fluttering in the draughts. I'm saying drafts, but it's spelled draughts again. I think it's draft in this case because it's talking about air, but it's spelled D-R-A-U-G-H-T. Fluttering, because I don't think it should be like fluttering in the draughts, and I don't think there's a third way of pronouncing it, so I think it should be drafts. Sharkies say draft sounds right. Pharma says she thinks maybe it's just British. Yeah. We had this talk a chapter or two ago where I feel like if you are referring to air, then it should be draft. If you're taking a drink of something, then it's a draught. Right? Well, anyways. The stairs were not made all the same for hobbit legs, and Bilbo just was feeling that he could not go on, was feeling that he could go on no longer, when suddenly the roof sprang high and far beyond the reach of their torchlight. A white glimmer could be seen coming through some opening far above, and the air smelt sweeter. Before them, light came dimly through great doors that hung twisted on their hinges and half burnt. "This is the great chamber of Thror," said Thorin, "the hall of feasting and of council. Not far off now is the front gate." They passed through the ruined chamber. Tables were rotting there. Chairs and benches were lying there overturned, charred and decaying. Skulls and bones were upon the floor among flagons and bowls and broken drinking horns and dust. As they came through yet more doors at the further end, a sound of water fell upon their ears, and the grey light grew suddenly more full. "There is the birth of the running river," said Thorin. "From here it hastens to the gate. Let us follow it." Out of a dark opening in a wall of rock there issued a boiling water, and it flowed swirling in a narrow channel, carved and made straight and deep by the cutting of ancient hands. Beside it ran a stone-paved road, wide enough for many men abreast. Swiftly along this they ran, and round a wide sweeping turn. And behold! Before them stood the broad light of day. In front there rose a tall arch, still showing the fragments of old carven work within, worn and splintered and blackened though it was. A misty sun sent its pale light between the arms of the mountain, and beams of gold fell on the pavement at the threshold. A whirl of bats, frightened from slumber by their smoking torches, flurried over them. As they sprang forward, their feet slithered on stones rubbed smooth and slimed by the passage of the dragon. Now before them the water fell noisily outward and foamed down towards the valley. They flung their pale torches to the ground and stood gazing out with dazzled eyes. They were come to the front gate, and were looking out upon Dale. "Well," said Bilbo, "I never expected to be looking out of this door, and I never expected to be so pleased to see the sun again, and to feel the wind on my face. But ow! This wind is cold." It was. A bitter easterly breeze blew with the threat of oncoming winter. It swirled over and round the arms of the mountain into the valley and sighed among the rocks. After their long time in the stewing depths of the dragon-haunted caverns, they shivered in the sun. Suddenly Bilbo realized that he was not only tired, but also very hungry indeed. "It seems to be late morning," he said, "and so I suppose it is more or less breakfast time, if there is any breakfast to have. But I don't feel that Smaug's front doorstep is the safest place for a meal. Do let's go somewhere where we can sit quiet for a bit." "Quite right," said Balin, "and I think I know which way we should go. We ought to make for the old lookout post at the southwest corner of the mountain." "How far is that?" asked the Hobbit. 5 hours' march, I should think. It will be rough going. The road from the gate along the left edge of the stream seems all broken up. But look down there. The river loops suddenly east across Dale in front of the ruined town. At that point there was once a bridge, leading to steep stairs that climbed up the right bank, and so to a road running towards Ravenhill. There is, or was, a path that left the road and climbed up to the post. A hard climb, too, even if the old steps are still there." "Dear me," grumbled the Hobbit. "More walking and more climbing without breakfast. I wonder how many breakfasts and other meals we have missed inside that nasty, clockless, timeless hole." As a matter of fact, 2 nights and the day between had gone by, and not altogether without food, since the dragon smashed the magic door. But Bilbo had quite lost count, and it might have been 1 night or a week of nights for all he could tell. "Come, come," said Thorin, laughing. His spirits had begun to rise again, and he rattled the precious stones in his pockets. "Don't call my palace a nasty hole. You wait till it has been cleaned and redecorated." "That won't be till Smaug's dead," said Bilbo glumly. "In the meanwhile, where is he? I would give a good breakfast to know. I hope he is not up on the mountain looking down at us." That idea disturbed the dwarves mightily, and they quickly decided that Bilbo and Balin were right. "We must move away from here," said Dori. "I feel as if his eyes were on the back of my head." "It's a cold, lonesome place," said Bombur. "There may be drink, but I see no sign of food. A dragon would always be hungry in such parts." Come on," cried the others. "Let us follow Balin's path." Pharma says, the internet seems to think it's always draft, but sometimes mispronounced draught. Really? All right. Under the rocky wall to the right, there was no path, And so on they trudged among the stones on the left side of the river, and the emptiness and desolation soon sobered even Thorin again. The bridge that Balin had spoken of they found long fallen, and most of its stones were now only boulders in the shallow, noisy stream. But they forded the water without much difficulty, and found the ancient steps, and climbed the high bank. That must have been cold water. After going a short way, they struck the old road, and before long came to a deep dell, sheltered among the rocks. There they rested for a while, and had such a breakfast as they could, chiefly cram and water. Cram is italicized, and it says, "If you want to know what cram is, I can only say that I don't know the recipe, but it is biscuitish, keeps good indefinitely, and is supposed to be sustaining, and is certainly not entertaining, being in fact very uninteresting except as a chewing exercise. It was made by the lakemen for long journeys." Funny little interlude there. And now, cram. Let's talk about cram, shall we? Who wants to know about cram? Raise your hand. Honestly, I personally wish it had talked more about cram. After that, they went on again, and now the road struck westwards and left the river, and the great shoulder of the south-pointing mountain spur drew ever nearer. What's everybody saying about cram here? Farmo says, trying not to burst out laughing in the middle of the room, cram. Recipe? No, he doesn't have the recipe. I don't have the recipe. It says, I just read that, Sharkies. Come on. Cramming all the jokes you can. Yeah. That's, There was actually a line that says, I don't know the recipe. And here you are asking? Come on. Go and cram it. Okay, no more cram jokes. Womp womp. I wonder whether anywhere else, I'm sure someone has made a cram recipe somewhere, gone into some Middle-earth cookbook or something like that. But then again, would you really want to make this? It's really like the least appealing sounding food they've described so far. Like, all he really has to say about it is, it's like a biscuit, and it's boring. And it keeps. Eriker says, her battery died while she was cooking. Oh no, what were you cooking? Were you cooking cram? Did you miss all the talk about cram, Eriker? Oh, we were just talking about cram. You missed out on all the cram. Oh man. I'm delicious cram. Oh, okay, so you know about cram. Okay. Actually, no, you don't. You said delicious. All we know about it is that it's not delicious. It's boring. No one wants cram. I know not of cram. I need to reread the cram part for Eriker. They had just found a little shelter area. They rested for a while and had such a breakfast as they could, chiefly cram and water. If you want to know what cram is, I can only say that I don't know the recipe, but it is biscuitish, keeps good indefinitely, is supposed to be sustaining, and is certainly not entertaining, being in fact very uninteresting except as a chewing exercise. It was made by the lakemen for long journeys. So there you go. Now you know about as much about cram as we do. Eriker tried making rice and beans, but ran out of rice, so mixed in quinoa and heated up a can of beans. I can't believe it's not cram. So less chewy than cram. Oh no. Memories of cram. It's like cram, but it's not cram. Eriker made soft cram. What's better, soft cram or hard cram? This is getting dangerous. Let's get back to the book. After that, they went on again. No more Cram. And now the road struck westwards and left the river, and the great shoulder of the south-pointing mountain spur drew ever nearer. At length they reached the hill path. It scrambled steeply up, and they plodded slowly one behind the other, till at last, in the late afternoon, they came to the top of the ridge and saw the wintry sun going downwards to the west. Here they found a flat place without a wall on 3 sides, but backed to the north by a rocky face, in which there was an opening like a door. From that door there was a wide view east and south and west. "Here," said Balin, "in the old days we used to always keep watchmen, and that door behind leads into a rock-hewn chamber that was made here as a guard-room. There were several places like it round the mountain, but there seemed small need for watching in the days of our prosperity, and the guards were made over-comfortable, perhaps. Otherwise we might have had longer warning of the coming of the dragon, and things might have been different. Still, here we can now lie hid and sheltered for a while, and can see much without being seen." "Not much use if we have been seen coming here," said Dorry, who was always looking up towards the mountain's peak, as if he expected to see Smaug perched there like a bird on a steeple. "We must take our chance of that," said Thorin. "We can go no further today." "Here, here!" cried Bilbo, and flung himself on the ground. In the rock chamber there would have been room for 100, and there was a small chamber further in, more removed from the cold outside. It was quite deserted. Not even wild animals seemed to have used it in all the days of Smaug's dominion. There they laid their burdens, and some threw themselves down at once and slept. But the others sat near the outer door and discussed their plans. In all their talk they came perpetually back to one thing. Where was Smaug? They looked west, and there was nothing, and east there was nothing, and in the south there was no sign of the dragon, but there was a gathering of very many birds. At that they gazed and wondered, but they were no nearer understanding it when the first cold stars came out. And that is the end of chapter 13. We made it through. It was took a little longer than I was expecting, but that's partly because I kept stopping and talking about things. Chapter 14 is titled Fire and Water, which is an ominous title if you ask me. Come on, this is some neat art. Let's focus on it. Maybe if I hide. Maybe if I make it take up the whole screen. No, maybe if I do a slow push in. Focus, focus, focus. Anywhere, focus, please, focus. There it is. There, you can see it. Hey, look at that. I see a shield and a bow, more than one bow, and many people and fire. Actually, while we're here, why don't I see if I can, Erica loves the random group of birds. See if I can get the, beginning of this chapter, because I can use that if I can get it to focus. Not at home. Come on, you did it for fire and water. Get right up in there. This image. I feel like this is the third time I've tried to get this to work, and it does not want to show you guys this this helm and sword and such. Wonder why. I need to learn more of the technical stuff so that I can do this manually, maybe. I wonder if I could. Let's be real. I am not likely to figure that stuff out. Oh well. Tried it. Eric says, neat art. Farmhouse is focusing on the fire part of fire and water. Yeah, that's definitely an ominous word to be using when there's a dragon about. What else did I miss? People talking about probably more Cram. That's a toughie. Farmo says, Cram light TM. Erica is ambivalent on my hard versus soft, neutral, nutritious substance. Farmos thinks she prefers soft, easier to digest. Sharkies say, no poop. What? Sharkies? What? Oh boy. Cram, lovely Cram, beautiful Cram. Cram. We got beans and Cram, beans and eggs and Cram. Cram, eggs and beans. Sharkies, how would they know there had been no animals in the guardhouse? There must not have been any droppings left. Yeah, that's probably it. Well, and I mean, maybe, like, honestly, if there'd been nothing in there, then there's probably some dust, and so you could see little prints in the dust if there had been animals. And Cram. Or feathers and fur, yep. Erica says, or simply said, no poop. There we go again. Alright, I got you. That's why you were saying no poop. Ah, linking it back. I understand. So, that was an interesting chapter. TLDR for no poop. Ah, yeah. I gotcha. I understand now. I get it, guys. I can be slow sometimes. Slow on the uptake. It's also tricky because sometimes I read your messages when they come up, but sometimes if I'm in the middle of something in the chapter, I won't see the message until later on, and at that point, sometimes the context is gone entirely. Farmos asks, please do not make either a Cram or a no poop artwork. And of course, the Sharkies say, so you're saying, make a some poop artwork. And then Farmos turns into Vader. No! Why? Right. So I think the most important thing we got out of this chapter is Cram. The second most important thing, I liked the bit of, like, they're looking at these treasures and they're like, hey, look, remember this? I can relate to that. Do not want. Gotta keep the visuals PGs. Yeah, right, because kids shows and things like that never have poop jokes. Ever. But I can definitely picture the dwarves being like, remember that time when we had this thing and we were playing catch with it, because that's what you do with this thing. This thing that I've got here. You remember how we played catch with it, this one thing? Remember that time that guy, rest in peace, remember that time he used this for that funny joke? I don't know what I'm going on about here. But just the idea of, like, finding something that you had lost long ago and reminiscing about it, I think that's relatable. And so I could picture that in that chapter. Though maybe they got a little carried away. And I think we will be forgiving of Bilbo and just say that his fright by the bat had caused him to forget that the Arkenstone was in his coat pocket and not that he was intentionally withholding it. And it does kind of, yeah, like, he hadn't really been told about it, I don't think. We've had Thorin thinking about the Arkenstone, but I don't think he actually has mentioned it to anybody. Though I'm sure that Thorin isn't the only one that has seen it previously. Like, I would think that Balin or someone is probably aware of the Arkenstone. But yeah, so it was basically a chapter of, let's look at treasure, let's explore the Dwarven halls a bit on our way out, and let's talk about Cram. And I think that kind of sums up this chapter, even though it went on for a while. But got to spend some time talking about the treasure. It's what we're here for, right? So anyways, we're 8:15 now. Dragged that chapter out a little longer. I hope everyone's going to have a nice weekend ahead of you. And we shall reconvene here Monday evening, where we will get on with fire and water, and perhaps we will learn just what has happened to the dragon, since he's gone missing. Alright. Well, have a good weekend, everyone. I hope everyone has fun, has some fun plans ahead or something like that, does something entertaining. I'm got a little driving ahead of me on either Saturday or Sunday. Gotta go visit my mum. Yeah. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone. See you Monday.